More than 2,000 years ago, the world witnessed the rise of a man who would change history forever. From the rugged hills of Macedonia, to the deserts of Egypt, to the rivers of India, his shadow stretched across continents. His name was Alexander, the boy who would be called the Great. This is the story of a life lived at the edge of destiny, of war, ambition, brilliance, and the hunger to rule the world. Alexander was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of Macedonia. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant general who had transformed Macedonia from a weak kingdom into the strongest military power in Greece. His mother, Olympias, was fierce, ambitious, and deeply religious. She told young Alexander that he was descended from Achilles, the greatest hero of Greek myth, and that he was destined for greatness. But Alexander's true gift came from his teacher, Aristotle. Under the famous philosopher, he studied philosophy, medicine, science, literature, and politics. He learned not only how to fight wars, but how to think like a ruler. Even as a boy, Alexander showed courage and determination. When no one could tame a wild horse named Bucephalus, Alexander stepped forward. He noticed the animal was afraid of its own shadow. Turning the horse toward the sun, he calmed it and rode it successfully. From that day, Bucephalus became his faithful companion, and Alexander proved he was no ordinary child. In 336 BC, disaster struck. King Philip II was assassinated. The 20-year-old Alexander suddenly became king. Many believed he was too young, too inexperienced, and too weak to rule. The Greek city-states saw an opportunity to break free. The proud city of Thebes dared to defy him. But Alexander acted swiftly. He marched his army to Thebes, crushed the rebellion, and destroyed the city as a warning. The message was clear. This was no boy on the throne. This was a ruler who demanded obedience. All of Greece bowed to him. Alexander now turned his eyes east, to Persia, the largest empire in the world. At the river Granicus, his first test came. The Persians had the advantage of numbers and position. But Alexander led the charge himself, plunging into the river with his cavalry. In the chaos, he nearly lost his life. A Persian noble swung his sword toward him. At the last moment, one of Alexander's generals saved him. The Macedonians triumphed. The legend of Alexander had begun. 1 year later, the true test came at Issus. Here, Alexander faced King Darius III himself. The Persians vastly outnumbered the Macedonians. Yet Alexander was fearless. He led a thunderous cavalry charge straight at Darius. The Persian king panicked and fled the battlefield, abandoning his family and his army. It was a humiliation that Persia would never forget. The world saw that Alexander was not only bold, but unstoppable. Next came the city of Tyre, a fortress built on an island. The Persians thought it was untouchable, but Alexander was relentless. He ordered his men to build a causeway, a massive road stretching from the mainland to the island. For 7 long months, the siege raged. Finally, Alexander's forces stormed the city. Tyre fell. No place was safe from Alexander's determination. Finally, in 331 BC, the two greatest armies of the world met at Gaugamela. Darius assembled perhaps the largest force ever seen: cavalry, infantry, scythed chariots, even war elephants. Alexander studied the battlefield carefully. He extended his lines, forcing the Persians to spread thin. Then, with perfect timing, he led his cavalry in a decisive strike. Once again, Darius fled. The Persian Empire collapsed. Alexander now ruled from Greece to Babylon, from Egypt to Persia. He had become the master of the known world. When Alexander entered Egypt, he was hailed not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. At the temple of Amun, he was declared the son of a god. On the Nile, he founded a city that would bear his name, Alexandria. It would grow into one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, a beacon of trade, culture, and knowledge. Alexander was no longer just a conqueror. He was building a legacy meant to last forever. But Alexander hungered for more. He marched further east into India. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BC, he faced King Porus, who commanded a terrifying new weapon, war elephants. The fighting was fierce. The ground turned to mud in the monsoon rains. Elephants trampled men and horses alike. Yet Alexander's discipline and strategy won the day. Porus was captured, and, impressed by his courage, Alexander restored him as king, a loyal ally under Macedonian rule. But his men had reached their limit. After a decade of constant war, they refused to march any further into India. For the first time, Alexander had to turn back. In Babylon, Alexander prepared new campaigns, perhaps to Arabia, perhaps beyond. But suddenly, he fell ill. Fever, some said. Others whispered of poison. For days, he grew weaker until he could no longer speak. In June of 323 BC, the greatest conqueror the world had ever known was dead. He was only 32 years old. With his death, his empire fractured. His generals divided his lands among themselves. But Alexander's story did not end there. The cities he founded stood tall for centuries. His strategies were studied by generals from Caesar to Napoleon. His vision of a world united under one rule echoed through history. He had changed the course of civilization in just over a decade. Alexander the Great, the boy from Macedonia, who became a legend.